own participant. I inevitably took sides, whether I admitted it or not, and translated it into an academic narrative. What concerned me was committing to a research that seldom nudges the researcher towards a kind of immersive reflexivity in research that, that leads to evaluation of what our own lived experiences might become post-research, or what interpretations we might make in field mean to our own selves. When we conduct our field research, it significantly alters our relationship with our participants, ourselves, and those around us who are part of us during that journey. They're likely to be practical, intellectual, and personal changes for all those involved and the significant others of those involved within these when we write an ethnography. The significant part of ethnographic writing involves considering and reconsidering our own attitudes towards research questions, what we tell our own respondents, whether on being subject to, what would I tell my respondents on being subject to my own research questions. Almost always our respondents ask us the same questions we ask them, but almost always our views never get recorded in our within our notes or our final transcripts. Our own views are purely limited to theoretical reflections presented with support of an academic theory. When I began writing my ethnography, I knew it was too late to undo the values I had attached to being a victim or a survivor from my own position as a woman who had suffered from infliction of violence. As I sat down to write, it manifested my thoughts so much so that my word could become an introspection of my own predicament. And hence there were days when I refused to read or write, but I still chose to own my research, and it became difficult to not be conscious of a position of a woman navigating the conversations that I had with other women on violence and suffering. I began treading cautiously between writing from a place of victimhood or a hysteria. But I do acknowledge the extent of violence and suffering as one that has a much greater impact on the trivial aspects of women's life. Hence this piece of writing. My commitment to make my voice heard made my commitment to academic writing include a part of myself, my own self, in every woman I met and spoke to. Narratives that form an ethnography tell it like it is, and then some more. They do not fracture the space or the time they are written off. Instead, they evaluate it. My questions were erased and muted in academic writing, but the answers the narratives build themselves around echoed them, enjoined them in the answers of the women in my narratives. None of the women in my narratives are silent, mute, passive narrators. They chose to tell what they wish to be when they wish to be heard, in search of assertion, validation, and visibility. It is only in hindsight that I realize my respondents spoke in unstructured responses amid conversations at a noisy police station where they came to file their FIR, in hospital while waiting for their MLC, outside courtrooms while waiting for their cases to be called out. These notes among noises eventually became coherent, meaningful conversations about themselves only when I weaved their stories together in a sanitized academic format. My ethnographic journey of meeting, recording, and writing is taken within the realms of the multifaceted personal journeys we were on. I, my victims, survivors in my research, the female counselors, the police officers, the doctors, and the lawyers. So it is very interesting to note when Shalumit Reinhas, she says that she talks about something called an experiential analysis, a documentation of research wherein the researcher locates herself within her study to make sense of the social reality of her research. So instead of censoring and sanitizing our disabilities in our research writing to exhibit a sort of a chronological lie, what we need to do is telling stories, a commitment to telling stories within our ethnographic work that should raise a sort of consciousness about women's suffering with practical commitment to change to change that suffering, and not merely an exercise in descriptive knowledge. I'm done with basically my presentation, but I did like to add that at the beginning, the first session, there was this clip, and the presenter had talked about, stories for survival. So I think I do relate to it. I think I really like that presentation because yes, sometimes we do tell stories for survival, especially feminist researchers. Sometimes there's so much of themselves in the research that it becomes becomes sort of an outlet to speak about themselves more than their participants. So yes, my ethnography became a story for my survival. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So yeah, I actually had a question. So would you say that because I've been reading up a lot on this particular ethnographic research and all of that, can that also be connected to like protest literature? Like a lot of protest literature is reworked through the ethnographic research perspective because it's talking about survival, it's talking about communities and marginalized population. So is there anything? Yeah.
Yeah, a protest literature, there are a lot of so basically there's this emphasis in ethnography now, unlike earlier versions of ethnography of the 1900s when it actually began with Malinowski, where there was this focus on being an outsider in research. So looking at a culture, looking at a community, so they would go and study tribes from an outsider's perspective. But now, increasingly, especially amongst the researchers and ethnographers of the South, there is a focus on having embracing a lived experience within research. So being a part of the field, which means taking a stand, not just some sort of outsider observation, but going there and being being a part of those conversations. And so basically, this can also be translated into something called an applied ethnography or applied something on those lines.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Other questions for Suman ma'am? If there are, you can just. Yes, Kushagra, go ahead. Yeah.
The last point that ma'am made was that, basically before there was an emphasis on being an outsider and doing research like that, going into a community as an outsider and doing research as an outsider. So do you think that that act in itself is a discrimination of the people of that community?
Being an outsider sometimes does give you a very fresh perspective on your participants or on your community, but it does distance yourself. There are researchers who still do that kind of research because they want to maintain some kind of objectivity in their research, and they also want to not exactly discriminate, but they want to maintain a distance. So their research is almost very descriptive. So it's a descriptive research. So they kind of go into the field and they kind of, as it's not like they don't have an opinion about their participants or the culture, or they don't share it. They do, but like I said in my paper, that they sanitize it while weaving the narrative. They will remove all that personal opinion, personal anecdotes or everything, and they'll sanitize it to give you a very descriptive kind of ethnographic writing. So I don't know whether that could be discrimination, but yes, it's a good thing to take that reflexive turn. It's a good thing to voice your own opinion as a researcher within your research and to take a stand. I mean, I don't think it's possible to not take a stand while you are committing that research. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kushagra.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Suman ma'am. Now we'll move on to the next paper presenter, Parvinder Kaur. Are you there? Yeah. Hi, ma'am. So your topic is going to be the aesthetics of storytelling in, the pronunciation is going to be wrong. So Yuzuke Hamaguchi's Drive My Car. So please go ahead with your presentation. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Am I audible to all?
Yes, you're audible. Are you going to share your screen?
No, ma'am.
All right, perfect.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to present my paper, which I have written in collaboration with my fellow researcher, Ms. Amandeep Kaur. So I'm here to present it. The title of my research paper is The Aesthetics of Storytelling in Ryusuke Hamaguchi's Drive My Car. Jean-Paul Sartre, a French existentialist and philosopher, defines the importance of unique aesthetic experience of telling stories in his novel Nausea. I quote, A man is always a teller of tales. He lives surrounded by his stories and the stories of others. And he tries to live his own life as if he were telling a story. I unquote. Sartre asserts that storytelling is a unique way of exhibiting a sense of one's existence and being, not only to others, but to one's own self too. Sartre truly defines the art of storytelling, which has always remained a unique aesthetic experience in human life since ages. Storytelling is an age old social and cultural activity in which stories are shared as a means of delight and knowledge. Moreover, there are multiple forms of storytelling in terms of its medium. In addition to its traditional oral forms, such as fairy tales, folk tales, myths, fables, legends, multiple new forms of media has widened its scope in numerous ways. Films, documentaries, video games, to name a few, have given new directions to the art of storytelling. Film, as an important contemporary visual art, has put forward multifarious storytelling techniques which direct the spectator towards distinctive aesthetic experiences. So now let's discuss the concept of aesthetics first. The concept of aesthetics finds an important place in the present research paper. In the literal sense of the word, aesthetics is a systematic study of the nature of beauty in any object, whether natural or artificial. It is a branch of philosophy that attempts to locate and define the principles concerned with the nature and appreciation of beauty, especially in art. Since the birth of cinema, filmmakers have been adopting a wide array of aesthetic strategies in the conception and creation of their films. The present research paper traces the unique association between aesthetics and cinematic techniques of storytelling. It focuses on the aesthetics of storytelling in Ryusuke Hamaguchi's recently released film Drive My Car. This paper aims to study Hamaguchi's unique artistic way of storytelling through which he opens up numerous hidden passages of the characters' lives and existence. The paper analyzes the amalgamation of literary narratives with the main plot of the film to catalyze confession and creativity. Multilingual approach to lay bare the mysteries of all the characters' complicated lives. An artist's aesthetics to overcome pain and grief. And in the last, storytelling as an aesthetic experience for cathartic relief. So Ryusuke Hamaguchi is the prolific Japanese film director and screenwriter. Many of his films have earned international acclaim and numerous honors worldwide. He has now been active in cinema for more than 2 decades. The magnificent oeuvre of his works also includes a number of short stories and documentaries. So Hamaguchi's unique style of filmmaking unravels various intricate networks of human existence, such as familial relationships, marital hardships, bonds of friendship, memories, identities, destinies, and uneven dichotomies of happiness and grief, romance and complex love affairs in all his films. As a storyteller, he applies manifold and novel cinematic techniques to put forward these narratives in a lively and engaging manner. Drive My Car was premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in 2001. It won 3 awards, including Best Screenplay at its premiere, competing in 4 different categories at 94th Academy Awards. It won the Best International Feature Film there. The film is based on a short story written by Haruki Murakami, a Japanese novelist and short story writer. So the film revolves around the life of a middle-aged theater director named Yusuke Kafuku. He is married to a screenwriter named Otto. Their only child died of pneumonia some 20 years ago. The tragedy of their daughter's loss changed their lives forever. Kafuku leaves television and goes back to theater. Otto becomes very lethargic, quitting her acting career forever. She gradually starts taking refuge into the world of stories. She always narrates a story while getting intimate with her husband. in a strange manner. She is not able to recall those stories. However, she makes Kafuku to remember her tales. So it has become their usual routine that Kafuku will give a detailed account of the story told by Otto a night before. This has also launched Otto's career as a television screenwriter. She prepares her notes from Kafuku's narration and develops it into a story. So, on the one hand, the whole process of storytelling helps them to overcome their grief. The telling of the story by Otto, the wife, and the retelling by Kafuku, the husband, has filled their lives with meaning again after the death of their daughter. The unique aesthetics of storytelling becomes a cathartic release for the grieving parents. So, on the other hand, Otto develops a deeper understanding of her own self, both as a mother and as a woman, through the medium of storytelling. The peculiar aesthetic of storytelling saves her from the double burden of her existence. I again repeat, as a woman and as a mother. This is how I put it. After the loss of her daughter, she decides not to have the second child. However, she cannot hold back her inner creative process, which finds its way in the form of these stories. She has lost all the willpower to live. These stories are the last hope which keeps her alive. Like Otto, Kafuku has also developed his own methods of narration, both as a director and as a storyteller. In the introductory part of the film, he is also planning to direct Anton Chekhov's play, Uncle Vanya. Following his distinctive methods of storytelling, Hamaguchi develops an association between the lives of the protagonist and Uncle Vanya from Chekhov's play. Hamaguchi, in an interview, says, I quote, "This is something that became very clear as I went along. In terms of character Vanya, he has essentially lost the life that he once wanted. So, in terms of his lines, when we hear him saying these lines, this fills in the gaps of emotions that Kafuku is not expressing. I unquote. So, here, whenever in the film, Kafuku repeats the dialogues or says the dialogues from the play Uncle Vanya, he plays the part of Uncle Vanya. According to Hamaguchi, by narrating or by saying those dialogues of Uncle Vanya, Kafuku, the main protagonist, he is narrating or he is exhibiting his inner self, which he is cannot otherwise, he has no other way out to say those inner emotions of his own life or his own tragedy from his own life. It is his own way to overcome grief and emptiness of his existence. So, after a long introduction, the film opens after 2 years of Otto's death. Kafuku is invited by Hiroshima Arts and Culture Theatre to direct Uncle Vanya. He meets Misaki Batari, a girl of 23, who is appointed by the theatre officials to drive his car. They grow a deeper understanding for each other. Their bond evolves into a long tale of loss, grief, and confessions. Here, this girl, Misaki, narrates her life story to Kafuku. Her mother used to beat her mercilessly when she was a child. Her mother had a dual personality. She died when their house was completely smashed by the debris during a landslide. Misaki could save her mother from the destroyed house, but she chose not to help her mentally ill mother. Kafuku also makes his confession to Misaki here that if he could have come earlier that day, his wife would be alive today. As the plot develops, Misaki appears to be Sonia from the play Uncle Vanya. Both Kafuku and Misaki, more like Uncle Vanya and Sonia, while giving sympathies to each other on a more humane level, hope for a better future. So now turning to the other aspects in the film, like setting, scenes, and language, also enhance the aesthetics of storytelling on the whole. The amalgamation of medium and long shots play a crucial role to put forward the facial expressions, body language, as well as the background scenery in the film. Most of the film is set in Hiroshima. The extra long scenes of metropolis highways and conversations in the moving car, as the title itself suggests, drive my car, add to the constant movement in the film. Uncle Vanya is a multilingual play. which is directed by Kafuku in the film, is a multilingual play which includes English, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean Sign Language. This is the result of Hamaguchi's veracity and a deeper understanding of the fluidity of language in the modern world order. So the present research paper attempts to understand aesthetics as a branch of philosophy and its importance in cinema to decipher the whole genesis of modern life. To sum up, it can be said that in the hands of Ryusuke Hamaguchi, the cinematic apparatus and techniques help enhancing the aesthetics of storytelling. So I'm done here. Thank you so much, and I'm open for discussion.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Are there any questions that you have for Dr. Parvinder Kaur?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the movie Drive My Car is based on a short story by Haruki Murakami, right? So my question is, what is the different, like, and the whole paper was about the aesthetics of storytelling. So what are the differences in the aesthetics of like a written story versus a story that is, told through a movie? Yeah.
Okay, so here I can tell you one simple thing that when Hamaguchi chose this film, okay, for the literary adaptation, when he was adapting the film from the story by Murakami. In Murakami's story, all of the protagonists' past life is shown through the flashbacks. Okay, right? There are flashbacks in the short story by Murakami. Then Murakami is narrating the past life of the protagonist of the story, right? Kafuki. But what Hamaguchi did here in the film, that instead of choosing the medium of flashbacks, he attached a 40 minutes introduction in the beginning of the film. Okay, and moreover, Hamaguchi is known for his long films. Okay, he is one of those directors in Japanese cinema whose films are very long, right? So instead of using the technique of flashbacks as Murakami did in his short story, Ryusuke Hamaguchi, he attached the introduction of 40 minutes, which is based on the flashbacks of that story. Okay, and after that 40 minutes introduction, he starts the film in the present, right, where Kafuku meets that 23-year-old girl named Misaki, right, who is actually in a way in the coming scenes of the film, we see that how she is transformed into the Sonia, and Kafuku is playing the role of Uncle Vani, right? So after the 40 minutes introduction, the film starts in the present. So this is how, when I say that, I'm talking about the very, in a way, the aesthetics of storytelling which Hamaguchi has selected for the film. Okay, so this is one example, right, where the story by Murakami and the film, the adaptation by Hamaguchi, they differ. So there are these kind of differences here, right? So am I able to answer your question?
Yeah, also I had another question. Do you
Yeah, right.
think when someone is adapting a written story, like maybe a novel or a short story, do they need to be 100% true to the subject matter, or can they even be 100% true to the subject matter, or should they take some creative license and make the story as it makes sense to them, translate the story for a visual medium,
I personally think that, and after watching Hamaguchi's adaptations, okay, this is his second adaptation. He has also adapted other films too. So, talking from that perspective, when I watched Hamaguchi's films, his literary adaptations, he made me agree with his adaptations in a way that, yeah, I can say that. Because there is a change of media now from the novel, now it is a kind of visual presentation or representation, right? So I personally believe that director can use some kind of creative aspect, creative techniques, cinematic apparatuses, right? And he or she has the liberty to change the representations. I personally feel that, though we can say that as the adaptation theory, when it comes to adaptation theory, right? Most of the theorists don't agree with the adaptations on a level that when it comes to literature, right? And when come to the visual representations of the literary things, right? Whether it is a short story or a novel, there is a long debate about this. But when you watch Hamaguchi's films, you can completely agree on that. Yeah, some creative changes should be there, or it could be there. There is no problem in that. I personally feel that.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Parvinder and Kushagra. Thank you for those questions. We will now move to the final participant, I guess. Is Aparna ma'am here in the session? No, she's not. All right, so we move on to Bhavika G. Nath's presentation, and that would be the last presentation for the day. So over to you, Bhavika ma'am.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am Bhavika, as an MA student at MG University. First of all, I'm very thankful towards the organizers and conveners of this conference for providing me an opportunity to present my paper in front of you. The title of my paper is The Art of Storytelling. Through the paper, I would like to share how performing art conveys stories with the reference of Indian dance drama. All cultures have their own stories or narratives which impart moral values, entertainment, and passing them to the next generation. Stories act as a tool for cultural preservation. Well-crafted stories have the power to change people's perspectives. India is a land of diverse culture, and each state has its own style of storytelling. Various regional languages combining musical composition between the narrations. They narrate stories using different medium. Some narrate story using puppets, masks, and musical instruments, while some narrate through music and dance. The Indian style of storytelling is known as Katha. Katha inculcates moral values by revealing the consequences of human action. Katha tradition is mainly three types: Purana Pravachana, Katha Kalaksheva, and folk narratives. Purana Pravachana literally means representing the myth. This is a form of Hindu religious discourse that consists of lectures about Vedas. The Pauranika or Pravachana Pandit become the spiritual interpreter of these texts. Usually have a religious theme, mostly the life of a monk or the story of epics of India. Then Katha Kalakshevam means narrating stories from ancient scriptures in a comprehensive manner to common people. The narrator of the story is skilled in classical music, interviews the main story with music and dance. This kind of storytelling demands the theological and literary skill of storyteller. For example, Harikatha is considered to be the oldest storytelling tradition of Indian subcontinent. The third Katha tradition is folk art or folk narrative. Usually gives a moral lesson to the audience. Folk narratives of Andhra Pradesh, Burakatha, and the Villupattu of Tamil Nadu belongs to this tradition. A story becomes more delightful and entertaining than reading when it is performed. Each story is an expression of each era. Stories help the narrator to communicate to the audience. Some stories are told through the medium of dance and music. For example, Kathak, Yakshaganam, Odissi, Bharatanatyam, Kathakali, and so on. Kathak is one of the major forms of classical dance drama in India, developed under the influence of Hindu and Muslim cultures. The term is derived from Sanskrit word kada, which means story, and the kadakars, one who narrate the story. The kadakars travel from village to village and communicate stories and mythology through dance, song, and music. Kathak is inspired by nature, seasons, people, emotion, spirituality, were the things that anyone in the world can relate. Then another art form was Yakshagana. It just translates to Yaksha song. According to Indian mythology, Yakshas are the natural spirits or guardians of natural treasures hidden within the earth. Traditionally, the performance used stories drawn from Puranas, the Ramayana and Mahabharata. Yakshagana dissolves the boundaries between storytelling, dance, dialogues, and acting. Odyssey is another art form where the artists play out a story which conveys spiritual message or devotional poem from Hindu text. Odyssey is mostly performed by women dancers, and it is regarded as love dance that encompasses both human and divine components of life. Bharatanatyam is also a dance form which is used to express Hindu religious stories and devotions. Kathakali is one of the important genres in the Indian classical dance form is associated with storytelling. The story in Kathakali is communicated to audience through the excellent footwork and impressive gestures of face and hands, complemented with dance, complemented with music and vocal performance. Kathakali is a dance drama which believed to be the oldest dance form of Kerala. The term Kathakali is derived from Katha, which means story or a conversation or a traditional tale, and Kali, which means the performance or a play. The dance symbolizes the eternal fight between good and evil. The originator of Kathakali is Kottarakara Tampuran, and the Kathakali is thought to have evolved from two dance drama traditions known as Ramanattam and Krishnanatam. Which is the Ramanattam portrays the story of Lord Rama, and Krishnanatam portrays the story of Lord Krishna. And the stories for Kathakali are taken from the Indian epics, Puranas, and mythologies. In Kathakali, the story is told by the actors on the stage, act out the word sung by the Bhagavatas through the handprints and facial expression. There are 101 classical Kathakali stories, most of which were initially composed all night. The modern performances are shortened to 2 to 4 hours by selecting the most dramatic or popular portions in individual stories. The most popular stories enacted are Unnai Warrior's Nalacharitam, a story adapted from Mahabharata, and Kalyana Saugandhikam is a story of Bhima going to get flowers for Draupadi from Mahabharata, and Kichagavadam is another story of Bhima, Kiradam, the fight between Arjuna and Lord Shiva, and Karna Shabdam. Kathakali is a unique combination of literature, music, painting, acting, and dance. Today, the art has grown into one of the most powerful visual arts movements in the world. Some of the works adapted for modern Kathakali performance, such as the story of Mary Magdalene from Bible, Homer's Iliad, and Shakespeare's King Lear, were adapted into Kathakali scripts. Through this innovation, it has become very much popular in the worldwide. From the hieroglyphics of ancient Egypt to the tapestries of medieval Europe and Chinese shadow puppets, culture have used storytelling as a way to depict real-life events and influence how people remember them. Storytelling is about the connection and communication. Telling stories is an effective way to influence others, and narrative style is more engaging than any other speaking style. The dancers um, in India, every state and districts follows their own signature style of storytelling. Visual arts plays a role in the development of cultural literacy. The actors dances the story through an intricate sign language that is universal appeal, which crosses the multilingual barriers and convey the story. That was all about my topic.
Thank you so much, Bhavika Nath. Just wanted to like ask you, is it like, would you say that Kathakali would be like the most popular form of storytelling in terms of visual arts, or is there anything? Because I was just trying to recollect the name, something called as Teyyam or something, which is also a form of like ritualistic dance worship, but like a visual art form. So would you say that Kathakali would be the most popular in terms of, at least in Kerala for that matter?
No, ma'am. Kathakali is the oldest dance drama in Kerala. That's why I mentioned that. That's it.
But you wouldn't say that it is the most popular dance form or like storytelling version in visual arts.
I couldn't get it.
No, I just meant that, is it the most popular dance form, or would you say, you said it's the oldest, but at least in Kerala, if you're talking about visual arts, is Kathakali counted as the most popular or the most well known and influential, or are there any other art forms which come very close to Kathakali? Because a lot of people are aware of this dance form or this visual art form as in comparison to others. So what do you think is the reason for that? Is it because it's the oldest?
And it have a wide popularity in worldwide. That's why I mentioned Kathakali. And I just choose randomly from every states.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. I was actually curious about the next, like the latest, or the how has it survived so sustained so far. So you also mentioned that they have put on performances using Shakespeare's stories or Shakespeare's plays, even a story from the Bible. So they are adapting to different story forms and not just limiting to Hindu mythology. So that's interesting. Anyone else who wants to ask a question? No? All right. So I guess thank you so much to all three presenters. We can join the main room for the vote of thanks, and then we can say goodbye to the conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.